The night Emma Caldwell decided to test herself began with a rule she was sure she would break. She stood in her apartment in Toronto, shoes still on, coat still zipped, staring at her phone like it had challenged her. Outside, sirens passed and faded, the city alive and uncaring. Inside, her heart beat faster than it had in years. The message on her screen was short, but it carried weight she hadn't felt since her 20s. 2 names. 1 moment. Daniel Harper and Liam Brooks were back in town. Emma hadn't seen them in almost 7 years. Not in person. Not face to face. She told herself she had moved on, that time had done its job. She had a career, a calm routine, and a life that didn't surprise her anymore. That was the point. No chaos. No emotional risks. But her phone buzzed again. "We're only here tonight," Daniel wrote. "No pressure," Liam added. "Just thought we'd reach out." Emma laughed softly, a dry sound. No pressure was a lie. These 2 men had once been her whole world. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, daily one. Coffee runs. Late talks. Shared dreams. Then confusion. Then distance. Then silence. She had chosen silence. Emma walked to the window and looked down at the street. She remembered the version of herself who used to take chances, who believed feelings were worth the mess. Somewhere along the way, she decided being untouched was safer than being hurt. Tonight, she wondered if safe had turned into lonely. She told herself this was just a test. Not of them, but of her. One night, a conversation. Proof that the past no longer controlled her. Her fingers moved before her mind finished arguing. "Come by," she typed, "if you want. Just for a bit." The reply came almost instantly. "We're on our way." Emma's stomach tightened. She cleaned the apartment too fast, fixing things that didn't need fixing. She checked the mirror, then laughed at herself. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. That life was over. The knock came sooner than she expected. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The sound carried straight through her chest. Emma stood still, listening to her own breath. This was the moment. The door between who she was and who she used to be. She could still pretend she didn't hear it. Instead, she opened the door. Daniel stood closest, taller than she remembered, his hair touched with gray at the edges. His eyes softened when he saw her, like something inside him finally relaxed. Liam stood beside him, familiar smile in place, the kind that once made her forget her worries. "Hey, Emma," Liam said. Daniel nodded. "Hi." For a second, no one moved. Then Emma stepped aside and let them in. The air shifted. They stood in her living room like guests who didn't know where to sit. Looking around as if the walls might explain who she had become. Emma felt exposed, like her quiet life was suddenly on display. "It's nice," Daniel said. "Very you." She smiled politely. "Thanks." They sat. They talked. At first, it was easy, almost too easy. Work stories. Travel updates. Liam joked about getting lost downtown. Daniel talked about his job and how busy it kept him. Emma listened, nodding, laughing at the right moments. But under the surface, she felt everything. The way Daniel paused before speaking, careful and thoughtful. The way Liam leaned forward when she talked, fully present. This was the danger. Not the past, but how natural it still felt. She poured coffee, grateful for something to do with her hands. When she came back, she noticed Daniel watching her, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that felt familiar, like he was memorizing her again. "So," Liam said, breaking the silence, "you doing okay?" The question landed heavier than expected. "I am," Emma said honestly. "I think." Daniel smiled gently. "That sounds like you." They laughed, but the mood shifted. The walls between them thinned. Emma realized she wasn't nervous anymore. She was awake. They talked about the night everything changed years ago, without blaming or reopening wounds. Just acknowledging it happened. That life moved them apart before they understood what they wanted. "I always wondered," Emma said quietly, "if I made the right choice." Liam didn't rush to answer. Daniel didn't either. "Maybe there wasn't a right one," Daniel said. just the one you could handle at the time. Emma felt something loosen in her chest. The conversation sped up after that. Honest, real, no pretending. Emma admitted she had built her life to be controlled and calm. Liam admitted he was tired of always chasing the next thing. Daniel spoke about feeling settled but not complete. No one crossed lines. No one said too much. But everything mattered. Time passed faster than Emma expected. Outside, the city grew quieter. Inside, the air felt full. Emma stood and walked to the window again, needing space. The streetlights glowed below. She thought about how long she had stayed closed, how safe it felt, and how small. She turned back to them. "I didn't invite you here because I knew what I wanted," she said. "I invited you because I wanted to see if I could still feel something." Liam's smile softened. Daniel nodded slowly. "And Liam asked?" Emma breathed in. "I do." No one spoke for a moment. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was respectful. Daniel stood. "Then whatever this is," he said, "it was worth the trip." Liam agreed. No regrets. They didn't stay much longer. There was no dramatic goodbye. Just shared looks and quiet understanding. At the door, Emma paused. "Thank you," she said, "for coming." Liam smiled. "Any time." Daniel met her eyes. "Take care, Emma." When the door closed, Emma leaned against it, heart racing. The apartment felt different, not louder, not emptier, just alive. She hadn't tested them. She had tested herself, and for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of the result. The night had already changed Emma Caldwell's life before it even ended. She sat on the edge of her sofa, the city lights spilling gold across the floor, her heart still racing from the brief visit of Daniel Harper and Liam Brooks. The apartment felt both too small and too full at the same time, filled with echoes of laughter and the unspoken truths that had passed between them. Emma had let them in, not just through the door, but through the careful walls she had built around her heart. That act alone left her trembling with a strange mix of fear and relief. She stared at her coffee cup, tracing circles on the surface with her finger, thinking about how easy it had been to slip back into old rhythms. Daniel's calm presence lingered in the room. Liam's warmth hung in the air, even though they had gone. Emma realized she wasn't just remembering them, she was remembering herself. The version of her that had loved fully, risked deeply, and trusted with no conditions. That girl hadn't disappeared. She had been waiting, hidden beneath layers of caution. The phone buzzed again, but this time she didn't reach for it. Messages could wait. She needed to process what had happened. It wasn't just nostalgia or fleeting emotion. It was something stronger, something that tested the limits of who she thought she had become. She had invited them in to see if she could handle the old feelings resurfacing. And now she understood that feeling alive again didn't mean chaos. It meant courage. Emma remembered how Daniel had looked at her. A quiet intensity in his eyes, the kind that made her feel seen in a way no one else had. Liam's laughter still echoed in her ears, the way it had a way of breaking her walls gently, without force. She thought about the way they had shared pieces of their lives, unguarded, and realized that tonight wasn't just a reunion, it was a revelation. She had underestimated her own capacity to feel, to connect, to remember what it meant to trust and care again. Her phone buzzed again, insistent this time. Emma picked it up slowly, knowing what she might see. A message from Daniel, a joke from Liam, or worse, nothing at all. The screen lit up and she froze. A message from Daniel. "Hope you're okay. We didn't mean to overwhelm you." Emma smiled softly. No, they hadn't overwhelmed her. They had reminded her that she was capable of more than she had allowed herself to feel. That thought alone brought a warmth to her chest she hadn't known in years. Emma stood, moving to the window. The city stretched out endlessly, full of possibilities. It was impossible not to think about the years that had passed, the moments she had pushed away, the choices she had made. For years, she had been certain that distance was strength. But strength, she realized, wasn't about shutting out people. Strength was opening herself to the unknown, risking heartbreak, and trusting that she could survive the outcomes. She walked back into the living room, feeling lighter yet more aware than she had in years. The furniture, the pictures on the walls, even the little imperfections of her apartment, they felt different, alive somehow. She realized that letting Daniel and Liam in had not just reopened old doors, it had shifted her perspective entirely. She had been testing herself, and the test had revealed something important. She could still feel, still hope, still allow life in without fear. Emma sat back down, her mind replaying snippets of the evening. Daniel had told her about his quiet struggles, the life he had built but hadn't fully embraced. Liam had confessed how exhausting it was to always chase after things, never stopping to notice what really mattered. Their honesty had been disarming, yet comforting. It was a reminder that everyone carries burdens, and sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is to let someone share theirs with you. As she sipped the last of her coffee, Emma thought about what she wanted next. She didn't have the answers, not yet. She didn't know if there would be future visits, new beginnings, or rekindled friendships. What she did know was this: tonight had proven to her that life wasn't meant to be lived behind closed doors. No matter how safe those doors seemed, it was meant to be messy, vibrant, and full of connection. Emma wandered over to her bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines of novels she had once loved. She remembered the nights spent reading by candlelight, imagining lives different from her own, wondering if she would ever experience something as intense as the emotions she now felt. The realization hit her again. She hadn't lost herself. She had simply paused. Tonight had been a reminder that she could start again, even if slowly, even if cautiously. The apartment was quiet now, but the quiet was comforting. Emma sat cross-legged on the sofa, thinking about the way Daniel and Liam had left without any promises, without forcing her to make choices she wasn't ready for. That restraint, that respect, felt revolutionary. It reminded her that connection didn't always require immediate answers. It required presence, honesty, and patience, all of which she was suddenly ready to give herself. Emma smiled softly, thinking about the last thing Liam had said as he left. No regrets. She repeated the words quietly, letting them sink in. No regrets. That phrase wasn't just about the evening, it was about her life. She had spent too many years avoiding emotion, guarding her heart, fearing what might happen if she allowed herself to care. Tonight had shown her that the act of feeling fully and without apology is worth every risk. She got up and walked to the window again, looking out at the city with a new awareness. The streets below were alive with people, stories, and possibilities, all moving forward while she had been standing still. She realized that she didn't need to chase the past or force the future. She just needed to allow herself to experience the present, to feel, to connect, and to live openly. That simple acknowledgement was powerful, almost revolutionary. The night deepened, but Emma didn't feel tired. She felt awake in a way she hadn't for years. She knew that her life was different now, not because Daniel and Liam had visited, but because she had dared to open her door, both literally and emotionally. That act of courage had broken something inside her. But in doing so, it had also restored something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. Emma finally moved to her bed, laying down with a sense of peace she hadn't expected. Her thoughts wandered to what might come next, but she didn't fret over it. She didn't need answers tonight. The night had been a new reminder that feeling deeply was not weakness, that opening your heart was not dangerous, and that allowing people in could change your life in ways you never imagined. As she closed her eyes, Emma realized that she had passed her own test. She had invited emotion back into her life, welcomed the past into her present, and allowed herself to feel without judgment. There were no promises, no guarantees, but for the first time in years, that didn't matter. She understood now that the heart's strength was measured not by how much it could endure in solitude, but by how courageously it could open to others. And somewhere in the quiet of the Toronto night, Emma knew this. Letting people in wasn't about love alone or friendship or closure. It was about remembering that life was meant to be shared, that emotions were meant to be felt, and that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was simply open the door. The city outside hummed, the streets alive with stories, but Emma felt calm. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was ready to face whatever came next with her heart wide open, knowing that tonight had changed everything. She fell asleep with a small, peaceful smile, the echoes of laughter and gentle conversation lingering in her mind. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt complete, not because life was perfect, but because she had the courage to feel, to trust, and to let life in. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift she could have given herself.